Okay, before we proceed with Days of General Restlessness, number 5, the medium awaited episode, I'm going to mention this real quickly in case you missed it on Fake Fiction late Monday, because I got everything done late, but you'll hear that in Fake Fiction. That's not for here. Also, yeah, I'll have to talk about my microphone mitten. Let you wonder about that until you hear it. But you'll notice that I was playing around with theme songs as I was, enjoying it. And I thought I would have to have it. And I don't have to have it, but I like having it. So I had one was just long and epic. It was like never ending. It was like way, way, way bigger than any of my episodes. So I have found a way to pare down the time of the theme song, and although I tried something very simple for Fake Fiction, and it ended up being a little more complicated, but it's so short, so it works for me. Now I do have a theme for it's just a blanket theme for morning cereal. I'm not doing one for each damn story. I'm not doing an extra one for Days of General Restlessness, and and like Slumber Guard, and I did one for Slumber Guard, but that was when I was doing them all. But it's just me. So, which reminds me. Oh no, back to Fake Fiction. I'll talk about the studio. But that's what I wanted to mention. That you will notice a theme. This will be the theme for morning serial. So you'll hear Wednesdays and Fridays with the episodes that are going on those days, and then I have another one for Fake Fiction that you'll hear or have heard already from today, actually. But if this is Wednesday, it's day before yesterday, and if it's Friday, it's earlier this week. So, hold on. We have a further ado here, because I have to find it. I forgot. Okay, here we go. So, without any further ado, shit, I'm sorry. It's not supposed to start automatically. Okay, so without any further ado, we're going to proceed with morning cereal. And today's Wednesday, which means it's the ongoing soap, Days of Restlessness. Days of General Restlessness. I can't keep it straight myself. The ongoing story of the strange town of Tempest and the occupants that it keeps. That's just a good way to put it. All right, so here we go, folks. Out of Clumsy Hippo studio, we are picking back up where we left off. So here is morning cereal. Okay, so by happy accident, I'll just mention that you can hear the Chinook winds at the end. Sort of. Okay. Hold on a second. Where am I? I'm in the wrong damn folder. Yeah, I'm out of practice, obviously, from last week. Okay, now. Fade in. Soft white banner clouds teabagged the highest peaks of the Rocky Mountains. Escaping them, the range rode eastwards until giving up and sloping towards the ground. From this direction, no visible signs of Tempest's border are present. Through the heavily wooded area, the sunrise shone through, beginning to transition into simply sunlight. Despite the early hour, raised voices came from within the little chapel, whose rear end sloped downwards into the earth. The first 4 who had come at the chapel's call, Sissy, Chi-Chi, Lucine, and Poke, were now joined by meteorologist Pierce McMillan and Nurse Jolene. The latter 2 sat on two of the remaining pews, as the others were with Miss Jones behind the man who was speaking. A loud mechanical vibration was also present, accompanied by the occasional whimpering. There was a break in the noise, but it was soon resumed as Poke came around the speaking man to look for a sturdy seat, all the while fidgeting with the fresh bandage on his shoulder that had a crimson dot which was slightly larger than it was at first glance. The brown-haired man raised his arms, and the three in front of him bowed their heads. Turning briefly to look your way, he gives a wink with a hearty thumbs up before continuing. Days of General Restlessness by Sheridan D. Lowe. That'll be where the theme goes, I think. Number 5. Sheriff Fist Powers emerged from the pharmacy attached to Tempest Medical Center with a bag of pharmacies created to produce maximum sound from paper. Looking both ways on Tempestuous Boulevard, the man noisily dug a pill bottle out of the bag. With the addition of Honey Mancini, the number of disappearances in Tempest was at an all-time high. Dr. Cree Mancini, after reporting his wife being missing, was concerned about the sheriff, so prescribed him denim to help him to relax and focus. Opening the bottle, Fist removed a small ball of blue fabric the size of a green pea and popped it into his mouth. Once Fist had replaced the bottle and the bag had calmed its ass down, the sheriff heard the approaching squeaking sound right on time. Yusuf, the lone taxi driver in Tempest, did not operate in a traditional manner, choosing to run a laid-out course as if he drove a bus. Fist could remember the man's arrival in town, the victim of a bad accident of some sort. All he woke knowing is that he was in Tempest and was owner of a taxi. As far as Sheriff Powers knew, Yusuf had never regained his memory after all these years. Around a bend came Yusuf himself, squeaking increasingly as his taxi began a slight decline in the direction of the medical center. The taxi was sort of a dirty piss yellow with a smudged black and white houndstooth stripe along each side. The vehicle, a Ford Flintstone hybrid, was narrow, allowing only one passenger in the front and one in the back. There were no doors or windshield, and the canvas top, while taut, gave a little up and down as the taxi grew closer. The hybrid had 2 tires, one each for front and rear, and both were as wide as the car. The bearded, dark-haired driver firmly pushed on the steering wheel, moving it forward and causing both tires to lock, bringing the taxi to a stop with the back opening squarely in front of the sheriff. "Good morning, Sheriff," Yusuf greeted his fare. "How long are you with me?" "The office," Fist replied. "So we will be on our way, then." The driver placed his feet on the pedals and on either side of the hybrid's drive system and pedaled them onward. "You are not a fan of the tram, Sheriff?" Shaking his head, Fist confessed, "Nope. Don't trust anything mechanical larger than my watch. Especially that tram." Chuckling, the driver told the sheriff, "Yes, Mr. Crown is not his father." Pausing, he started again. "I hear you've been asking about the female doctor staying at Wishrams." "Oh, that I have," Fist answered, curious. "What do you know?" 3 days ago," Yusuf held up 2.5 fingers, "Yusuf picked her up at Wishrams. She came to visit a friend working at the new psychiatric center." "New?" Fist asked, surprised. "Haven't met the new shrink personally, but she just got here now. She's moving the center?" "This is incidental," Yusuf informed the sheriff. "Yusuf does not know where the new center is, so the woman got out at the old one." Looking into the rearview mirror to see Yusuf's eyes darting to his own in the reflection, Fist asked, "More?" "You're a very good sheriff," Yusuf praised Fist as he turned the large front wheel to the right without warning, almost hitting the sheriff out of the left opening. Yusuf begins to hear about a mystery woman. Confused, wandering, borderline hysteria. "How do you tell this from another woman?" The driver laughed heartily, then went on. "The Dr. Grace got into my taxi again yesterday. She did not know Yusuf, and barely herself. The woman had no idea of her destination, so Yusuf says he will take her where she needs to be, breaking the route to drive directly to Wishrams." "So you dropped her off at Skies?" Fist asked. This was Yusuf's plan. The driver swerved to avoid Ariana Grande. "This was when Dr. Grace's phone rang. It was a surprise to her. Yusuf could clearly see, but she answered it as if one was trying to figure out how to answer a ringing turd. Sheriff Powers asked. Any idea who is on the other end of that turd? No, the man in the front seat shook his bushy-haired head. Yusuf listens carefully, but nothing can be heard through the phone. But then Dr. Gray said something, and before Yusuf knows, she has rolled out of the taxi and began to run towards the True Love property. After a pause and a glance towards the back seat, he added, You know, the edge of the plateau. Fist wondered. This is getting to be a bit much. What with the children, Jompy's baby, the FBO agent, Donna Weaver, and now Honey. Was he forgetting someone? Returning to himself, Fist asked, What did she say? It was puzzling, Yusuf admitted as he turned onto Powers Avenue. It was as if she were suddenly aware. She'd spoken to the phone. It's only a matter of time before someone notices the glass, Daphne. Frowning, Fist fished in his breast pocket for his notepad. Yusuf saved him the trouble. Yes, Sheriff, Dr. Daphne Grace. I know. It confuses Yusuf. Approaching the front of the sheriff's office, Yusuf eased along the curb, coming to a stop behind Smoosh's black Malibu. Fist tried unsuccessfully to pay the driver, then exited the cab. Passing Smoosh, who was coming out of the sheriff's office, obviously having made a delivery from Melt's. The boy waved, flinging grease from his hand in many directions. Waiting for the boy to drive forward, Yusuf was surprised when Smoosh reversed, slamming into the front of his taxi, then went screeching off across the street and across the grass in front of the courtyard. In another dialect, Yusuf cursed the boy while checking the front of his car. Oddly, there wasn't much damage. Back behind the steering wheel, Yusuf looked at his wooden dashboard. Where there had been none before, a large crack performed a semicircle about where a glove compartment would be. Running his finger along the crack, the taxi driver put a minimum of pressure on the opening, and a chunk of wood fell to the floorboard by his foot, along with 3 different types of handguns. They were familiar to Yusuf, yet they were not. Hello, he remarked. Is this Yusuf's? Sheriff Fist Powers walked into the station, passing directly past Mayor Good's wife, Hazel, who had come in to operate the switchboard. With his fingers spread, he held his palm up to the woman before she could speak, indicating that he needed 5 minutes. On his way to the office, the new deputy State Magnuson ran past, grabbing his car keys off of his desk. It was his personal car, but he knew it would be the fastest to find Smoosh. Once the sheriff had sequestered himself in his office, Fist went to the open window where a plastic cup was dangling over the sill by a string which disappeared outside. Lifting the cup until the string was taut, the sheriff spoke into it. Girl fart, this is Stink Poop, come in. The clear voice of Fist Power's sister, Slap, returned from her cup at animal control. Reading you, Stink Poop. Been expecting you. Over. So you got it too? Over, Fist asked, returning the cup to his ear. Yeah, Fist, said the woman, breaking protocol. What the fuck was it? After a moment, she hurriedly spoke. Oops, over. Not sure exactly what it'll mean, Fist started to answer, but we got new memories coming. Plus, Winston Granville had stopped at his favorite convenience store for lunch. No matter when he came in, the oldest resident of Tempest and local news reporter would always find 1 cup of coffee left in a pot that had been brewed at least the night before. Grabbing a pack of Freedent gum, Winston poured the liquid gold into a styrofoam cup. As the coffee hit the inside of the cup, the man's mind began to wander to a memory or a movie he'd once seen, not realizing he had let go of the glass pot. Some significance seemed to pair itself with these flashes Winston was getting. He found parts in his mind without a way to connect any of them and began to get frustrated. The sound of glass shattering brought him back to the here and now. Mr. Winston, VJ, was emerging from his protective chamber behind the counter and rushed to the elderly man's aid. Please back away, I will retrieve a broom. Winston blew on his coffee while trying to remember what he was remembering. Taking a sip, he was surprised to find it was now ice cold. Plus, inside Crapo's mercantile, the aroma of orange oil permeated the wooden building. Pepto-Crapo had just finished polishing when the smell of the oil made her stop and think. Not sure what she was trying to think, Pepto looked at the bottle of orange oil, then around her store. Things had been tough since her husband had gone missing, and oddly, for the first time, she was unable to remember how long it had been. Still, the town had been very supportive. For some reason, the thought of the squeaking floor in the storeroom came to Pepto. The rug had been there, probably since they opened. Instinctively, the owner of the mercantile locked the door and turned the sign to show closed. In the storeroom, hands on her hips, the woman ascertained that the best way to lift the rug would be from the door. This would only mean that the desk would have to be moved, and move it she eventually succeeded in accomplishing. Rolling the rug back, Pepto was surprised, and not surprised, to find a trap door. Lifting the hatch, the woman gazed into the darkness for a moment before finding a flashlight. A ladder led down about 15 feet where the space was the same size as the hatch, except on one wall there was an opening leading to a tunnel. Unsure of what it all meant, Pepto knew it meant that soon she would have company. Plus, Flonase was scraping the tables in Melt's diner after the lunch rush, collecting the solidified pieces of cheese and placing them into a plastic storage bag. The waitress was thinking about her mother for some reason. They had never really been close, and now they would never be. Sorry, allergies. Flonase, speaking of Flonase, Flonase had been in her teens before she began to notice how her mother looked the same, no matter how old the picture. There were some images she knew were not from photographs, but it was confusing to remember seeing her mom in ways that were pre-photography. Only now, after the woman's death, did she feel a desire to know her mother's life. The bell over the door tinkled, bringing Flonase out of her trance. Sealing the bag, she turned to the door and found the medical examiner, Dr. Boopington, smiling kindly at her. Plus, had to do a mic swap, so in case I forgot. Plus, nope, these are pluses. As the last lunch bell rang, students streamed through the hallways without a glance up from their phones. Principal Whitey Blackman figured humans would eventually evolve to have sonar. Feeling as if his stomach was being pulled, the man went into the nearest bathroom to wash his face. Standing, he was not surprised, to see a different him looking back. Facial features were the same, but the reflection's skin was much darker and the hair was kind of nappy. This man was important to Whitey, and he had forgotten. Several rowdy boys crashed through the door, one falling to the floor before they saw their principal, and became silent as well as motionless. Even the kid on the floor. All eyes were wide when Whitey screamed at the boys, "I don't think I even know who I fucking am." Turning back to the mirror, Principal Blackman saw his normal self in the reflection. Barely registering the several boys reversing their entering process, the man said plainly, "I think I'm going to need to pack a bag." Inside the little slanted chapel in the woods, the brown-haired man was playing a song on his auto harp. Lucine looked wistful, and while she hadn't cried, she looked as if she had been. Chi-Chi sat in the lap of the full-grown infant Sissy Young, who rocked the crying mother. The 21-year-old toddler farted, giggled, and then returned to a stunned gaze. Finishing playing, Lucine and Sissy clapped for the man, and he told them, "Remember that there is a paradise in all of you. Believing this will lead you to the eternal paradise we lost so long ago." Turning to Sissy and Chi-Chi, he said, "Sissy, thank you for not throwing up. Chi-Chi, do not despair. Your son is not lost for good. You just may have to find him where you don't expect him." Looking up towards the back of the chapel, he called out, "Maybe next time, Mr. Floyd, you will not skulk in the rafters. Your feud with Miss Hatfield can be resolved." Looking at Lucine, he added, "If that is something you would like to do." The woman gave a half nod and shrugged one shoulder. Someone was clearing their voice. The man turned to see Miss Jones at the back of the church signaling his way. "Excuse me," he said, and joined the woman in red. "I just heard," the woman told the man. "The FBO are coming. Someone killed that female agent." Slowly, the brown-haired man grinned. Looking back at the 4 others in the chapel, he told Miss Jones, "We're going to need a bigger congregation." Fist emerged from his office thoughtfully. Glancing towards the usually unoccupied desk in the front, he saw Hazel Good, Tempest's first lady, furiously attempting to answer each of the flashing lights on the phone, which was all of them. As soon as she finished a call, the phone began to ring again. The mayor's wife paused for a moment to tell the sheriff that Stake was looking for Fist. "He's in the backyard interrogating a perp." With that, the woman's manicured finger pressed a button on the phone, and she greeted the caller. Moving to the back door, Fist glanced down a hallway that led to Tempest's hookah lounge, where the sound of a sitar resonated. Opening the back door, the sheriff blinked at the bright day. Enclosed by a 50-foot-tall chain-link fence topped with wrapped barbed wire, on the other side of the brightly colored slides within this fence was a sandbox, and Fist clapped his hands, yelling "Skit!" to Ariana Grande, sniffing around the sand. Cat ran off and under a slightly bent portion of the fence the sheriff had been meaning to fix. Beyond a row of 3 oak trees, he saw Stake and Smoosh swinging on the swings. Seeing Fist, Stake turned to the young delivery driver and said, "Right, we'll pick this up later. Back in your cell." Smoosh sulked and stopped swinging, then headed to the farthest oak tree, where he climbed a rope to the tree cell, after which the rope was dropped to the ground. Slipping into the swing next to his deputy, Fist began to kick his legs as a squelching emitted from the radio on his belt. Removing it, he spoke into it. "Come again?" was his reply. And then, after a shorter squelch, "Keep me posted. Fist out." Turning to Stake, he said, "Want to play hypotheticals?" "Hypotheticals, Sheriff?" asked a puzzled Deputy Magnuson. "I'll go first," declared the sheriff. "What if when Dr. Boopington was collecting the body of that government agent who was dressed as Miss Weaver, he made an as of yet unexplained discovery?" Swinging in unison with the boss, Stake answered, "Well, I think I would probably already be nervous to know." Fist mused. "Would you believe me if I said that in between Dr. Boopington being at the body with you and when he returned to collect it," the man lowered his voice slightly, "the body had over tripled its estimated weight?" It was quiet in the playground for a moment, when the creaking of the swing's chains could be heard clearly. The sheriff added, "And has since turned into quadrupled." "Interesting," noted Stake. "Hypothetically, if I had been here late last night, I might have gotten a phone call about Agent Taint from the FBO. Sheriff stopped swinging, waiting. They could have been very interested in reclaiming the woman's body, and to continue their assignment as well, with a larger force. When Sheriff Powers turned to look at the deputy, he told Fist, "It's completely plausible that someone in Tempest has written a tell-all book which places some people in danger from others and from being exposed. Somehow there could be a link to the FBO." Fist had images running through the folds of his mind, and they were not easy to understand. Memories of prosperity and desolation coincided into one incongruous town of citizens. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. His surefire sign, he sensed danger. Somehow he needed to solve the situation, but he now knew he wouldn't be alone. Fist suddenly started randomly thinking about Crapo's Mercantile. Turning to Deputy Magnuson, the sheriff declared, "Gonna need to get you a temporary sheriff. I think I could trust you, but the short amount of time you've been here, town would never accept it. Keep an eye on things. Hypothetically, I'm taking care of the FBO." The thought watched the sheriff and his deputy from the other side of the fence. Events were being placed in motion, which was taking longer than expected. At the start, the first major threat to visit the inhabitants who had no name for the town yet. Knowledge they would become a town, and still clinging to the idea that they would be leaving. So soft and unorganized they had been. Guidance was needed, and the thought discovered the ability to protect the people. As the 2 law officers stood and ran towards the door, slapping each other's hands at the doorknob, The thought could hear the archaic tones of the ice cream truck. Meteorologist Pierce McMillan waved his extended arm around the radar map of Tempest as if he were presenting a prize on The Price is Right. Looks like another beautifully mild day tomorrow, possibly breaking today's record for a consecutive number of days seeing the exact same temperatures. Moving to the other side of what was essentially just a map of the town, he cautioned, "If you are traveling tonight, take care on the roads. TTV's drone shows signs of ice on the highways outside of town." The man's arm lowered, and Pierce stared at a white dot on the radar. With a look of confusion on his face, the weatherman took a glance at the camera, then turned back to the radar, by which time several more dots had appeared, followed by several more, most in a cluster and a few randomly around the map. What the fuck? The feed was cut. Today's cast: COE number 1, Sissy Young. COE number 2, Chi Makepeace. I'll change that name. COE number 3, Lucine Hatfield. COE number 4, Polk Floyd. Curious number 1, Pierce McMillan. Curious number 2, Nurse Jolene. Tattoo artist, Miss Jones. Musician, brown-haired man. Anxious sheriff, Fist Powers. Taxi driver, Yusuf. Bad driver, Smoosh Weinstock. Temp, Hazel Good. Girl fart, Slap Powers. Customer, Winston Granville. Store owner, VJ. Possible widow, Pepto Crapo. Waitress, Flonase. Medical examiner, Dr. Belvedere Boopington. Queasy principal, Whitey Blackman. Frightened ruffians in the bathroom, Jonas Brothers circa 2008. And Sandbox pooper, Ariana Grande. With the thought: the days are long, so it is late as you see the sun setting beyond the edge of the plateau. Away from the center of town, the crickets could be heard. The trees are green, and towards the ground the flowers were bringing a brightly colored mosaic. Sitting on the edge of the plateau, watching your approach, are the brown-haired man and Miss Jones. Gesturing for you to follow, they fell back and over the edge. Your journey leads straight out beyond the edge, where, as you leave the sky boundaries of a delightfully mild evening in Tempest, your attention is drawn to the remainder of the Rocky Mountains and the flat land below and onward, along with a frigid temperature in the air that the throes of winter were blanketing any surface everywhere you can see. Fade out.